Here's the statement from the White House. Steve Bannon has nothing to do with me or my presidency. When he was fired, he not only lost his job, he lost his mind. Steve was a staffer who worked for me after I had already won the nomination by defeating 17 candidates, often described as the most talented field ever assembled in the Republican Party. Now that he is on his own, Steve is learning that winning isn't as easy as I make it look. Steve Bannon had very little to do with our historic victory, which was delivered by the forgotten men and women of this country. Yet Steve had everything to do with the loss of a Senate seat in Alabama held for more than 30 years by Republicans. Steve doesn't represent my base. He's only in it for himself. Steve Bannon pretends to be at war with the media, which he calls the opposition party. Yet he spent his time at the White House leaking false information to the media to make himself seem far more important than he was. It is the only thing he does well. Steve was rarely in one-on-one meetings with me and only pretends to have had influence to fool a few people with no access and no clue whom he helped write phony books. We have many great Republican members of Congress and candidates who are very supportive of the Make America Great Again agenda, like me. They love the United States of America and are helping to finally take our country back and build it up, rather than simply seeking to burn it all down. That statement coming from the President of the United States just a few moments ago. Hallie Jackson, our chief White House correspondent, is back with me as well. There continues to be a lot of talk, Hallie, over the relationship between the president and his former senior advisor, Steve Bannon. It would seem as if, based on this statement, that the breakup between the two men is now official.
There is no reconciliation coming based on this statement, Craig, because I think when every reporter inside the White House read this, and remember, this was sent out from the communications staffers to the pool to be distributed to every reporter that covers the White House, this statement from the president. And it was, to call this explosive is an understatement. I just was walking up, sort of jogging up to come talk to you just now. I was on the phone with one source who is just reiterating and underscoring how furious, how angry Donald Trump is right now. And the sense inside the White House of what in the world is Steve Bannon's endgame here? He is clearly throwing a grenade in and exploding it, and he has been, obviously, since the excerpts from this book came out, but now the president is doing a little scorched earth of his own. There is no coming back from this now. It's interesting when you look at the arc of the relationship between Donald Trump and Steve Bannon, from where they were on the campaign. I think back to that news conference at Trump Tower in which President Trump referred to Bannon, this was shortly before his firing, as Mr. Bannon. And I will tell you that raised some hackles on sort of Bannon's allies' side, Team Bannon. And now we've gone from that to the firing, which, remember when that happened, everybody thought, allegedly, right, the line from folks on Bannon's sort of side was that it was going to be a little bit kumbaya. Bannon was going to go out and push for the president's agenda on the outside of the White House instead of on the inside of the White House. He was going to help implement sort of the Trump plan, the Trump mission plan across the country. This is the final rupture, I think, of that relationship. Listen, this is also Donald Trump. And it's also Steve Bannon. And so you can't rule out a reconciliation at some point. You can't rule out the fact that Donald Trump may eventually zig. But this is one hell of a zag, I think you could say, considering that the president says Steve Bannon has essentially lost his mind, not only lost his job, but lost his mind. And that is coming from, obviously, the sitting president of the United States against somebody whose office was about 12 steps down the hallway from him, Craig. And so I do think this is, you can't overstate how remarkable this is and how angry Donald Trump is right now. And frankly, how angry others in the president's orbit, people inside this administration, talking to folks, very livid about all this.